Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time it is in your part of the world. Um, what I'm attempting to do today is dissect my original switches, dash switches, in the Ariston 1959 number 266. And I'm not quite sure how long these switches were used as far as the years. But I've had two 1959s and both sets of switches have been identical. So it's very possible that these switches were used a little bit earlier and maybe into the mid 60s or even later 60s, but I'm not sure. Maybe someone can chime in and help me out with that kind of research. But basically I felt like it was very important to try to save these original switches because the replacement switches that I've seen, although they look genuinely like this on the face, when you see the face of it in the dash, they are completely different on the back side, and they are made out of modern plastic. It's more of a modern plastic type switch, and I think it's always interesting to try to save the original equipment. These might be quite intimidating to some, and they certainly were to me until I started just looking at them one at a time. And fortunately I had a couple of old ones that I didn't mind breaking as I figured out the best way to take them apart and refurbish them. And obviously the main reason you're doing this is so that you can replate the face, put new chrome, shiny chrome on the face, and the only way to do that is to take this switch completely apart and take the case to your plater. So that it can be polished and replated. So probably the first and most difficult part of this task is figuring out how to get the back plate off. And we in the U.S. call this this material, we call this phenolic material. I'm not sure exactly what it's made of, but it's like a pressed material that's used in electronics throughout the world. Basically, the case is all one piece, and at the end of the case you have some very, very thin tabs that crimp the phenolic in place, and that allows the switch to work and keeps the back connections from coming out. And this is really the most difficult part because this is very thin. These are made out of brass, and this is very, very thin, and you have to be very, very careful. So the first thing you want to do is you want to clamp this in a vise very carefully, not to damage the threads either, but clamp it down here in a vise and take a small punch. This is actually a nail punch made by Stanley, very, very small end, and a very small hammer. It takes very little effort. If you use a big hammer, you're likely to break these. So you clamp it in a vise using a small punch. You position it right on the edge and you just lightly tap, and all you want to do is loosen this crimp so that the phenolic will easily slide out like so. That's all you want to do. You don't want to bend these anymore. If you bend them very far, they will crack and they will break off. So now what comes next is quite interesting, and these switches are, in my opinion, kind of complicated inside. So what I did was I dissected a switch so that you could see what was inside and how it worked. This is your empty case, and the first thing you'll notice about the case is that it has several different machined areas down inside of it. So it's a special case. And this is what you want to take to get to the plater to get new chrome once you get this completely gutted out, so to speak. Now, the first thing that you'll see when you take the phenolic out is you'll see these little tabs on the back of the phenolic. This is what makes the switch work. And you can see here there's a riveted rod, and that rod moves back and forth, and that's the switch part of it. You can hear it snapping back and forth. Okay, and I was worried at first that you'd have to drill out this rivet, but you do not. So here you have your two main components. So let's break the rest of it down. When you push the rod out through the back, it will snap out, and it's quite a complicated little thing with this plastic, and these are what the phenolic ride on. As you can see here, this is what makes the switch work as it moves back and forth. It makes contact, it doesn't make contact. Okay, but what gives it its snap, or positive in and out, is a little ball bearing affair that fits right in here through this hole. So you have to be careful as you push this out. When you push it out this way, you don't want to lose the little ball bearings that are inside. There's a little spring that goes in the hole like that, and then the two ball bearings fit right in that, on top of the spring. Now at the very base inside the case is another little kind of a rubber, it's a little bit flexible, a rubber ring, and that fits down in the very bottom of the case. So I guess it's kind of a stop for the rod to go back and forth, but don't forget you have to take that out. So the easy way to find that is take your punch or something metal and tap, and if you hear where you're not hitting metal, then you're hitting this little rubber stop. So you need to be aware of that and get everything out of the case, otherwise this will be ruined in the plating process. Now in the top of the case is a little cardboard roll, and what this does is this ensures that the back phenolic piece with its little tabs never touch the side of the case. So you'll find that in there. As soon as you take out the phenolic, this part, you'll see that this cardboard is in there, and you slide that right out like so, and then you'll have the rest of it inside there. So now what you can do is you have your empty case, take that to the plater, get it all replated, and then you're ready for work cleaning up the rest of the parts. This has some grease on it. The little rod and the ball bearings have some grease inside there so that it will operate smoothly back and forth. So you want to clean those, you want to put that back together. You're going to put in your little spacer all the way at the bottom, and then you're going to take your rod and insert it all the way into the bottom of the switch. Okay, and then you're going to slide in your cardboard like that, and then the last thing you do is you're going to take your phenolic with its tabs and slide that back together very carefully. And you'll probably need to spread those a little bit to get them to go around the rod. And then once you get that in there, all you have to do is very carefully recrimp this around the original phenolic. And of course I'm going to take a Dremel tool with a little wire brush, and I'm going to clean up all these contacts and make sure everything is very clean so that we have good electrical connection. And then I should have a perfectly restored, repaired switch. So I hope that helps and take a little bit of the mystery out of it for people, and encourage people, instead of just buying replacements, to repair their original switches, because they look much better behind the dash and they are the original parts.